Thanks for joining us and listening to another God-lived and God-breathed message by Darius Nelms. Our mission is to increase our generation standard back to God's standard of excellence and kingdom living through personal development, relational wisdom, business management, and faith increase. Our aim is that this message inspires and infuses you to reach your next level of living and helps you discover your rightful place in God's kingdom. Now, let's dive into the message.
Friends, thank you so much for tuning into this video as we discuss my latest book entitled Why Me? 5 Strategies for How Good People Can Overcome Bad Situations. Today we're going to be talking about strategy 2, which is being wise as a serpent, and we'll just be tying up some loose ends relative to questions and just processes for thought as you get through the book. And this should just kind of provide more detail and depth for you if that's what you need. First part that I want to talk about is overcoming naivety, which is getting over the fact that you are naive. This whole book is about my naive nature. It is. This book about strategies and things that I learned after saying before God and all the host of heaven that I would not be naive anymore, because I just found myself in bad situations relationally and socially, things of that nature, because I was naive. And I said that I cannot be naive anymore if I'm going to make it in this world. So overcoming being naive is, again, using the example of Jesus, who did not entrust himself to people, but instead he knew the motives and the reasons of people's hearts. And it's not to suggest that we are mind readers and we can know, but it's really more so about paying very, very close attention to people. That way we can see the red flags when we see them. More times than not, our nervous system picks up on people before we know it. And it was something that was said or something that was done that was like, not really with that, and we choose to bypass it because, again, we think that they're a good person. And so by bypassing that, we miss the red flags early on, and we miss the red flags probably for a couple of times as well. And in missing that, it causes us to be in some tough and rough situations, bad situations that we would prefer not to be in relationally and socially. And that just kind of goes to being naive and choosing to not read the tea leaves. And so overcoming naivety is, again, about choosing in your mind to pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. Second part is, what is the political nature of people? Now, the political nature of people that is defined in the book by Robert Greene is people basically acting in their self-interest, acting in a way that benefits them. So we understand the political nature of people. For one, we have to understand that everyone is selfish, including you, including me. We are all selfish in our own rights. We have our interests that benefit us. And so the goal of life is to, of course, serve other people, and to not allow that selfish nature to take over that will prohibit you and prevent you from serving others and helping others and giving your best to others, etc. But that political nature is very selfish, and it can have layers and depths of narcissism, meaning that you will do anything you can to protect yourself. That's almost like survival of the fittest, right? When things get tough, you are hungry, you hadn't eaten in 10 days, and you stuck out somewhere, and you're going crazy in the mind, and it's either you or the other person that's there, you're going to choose yourself, because that's your political nature. Like, that's innate, that's within us, to be able to self-preserve, if you will, to protect ourselves, from external threats. But a lot of times that political nature goes too far. It goes further than God wants it to go. And we're unaware of that. Sometimes we're unaware, and other times we are aware, because there are people that just literally play political games all day. I don't see how they do it, because that's not me, but nonetheless, they do that. And so the political nature of people will show you that people are always protecting their self-interest. They're always protecting their ideals. They're always protecting their beliefs. They're always trying to protect themselves from being influenced, like all of this stuff. So based on this political nature, you have to be aware that as you navigate in the world, as you try to form partnerships, as you try to do business with people, as you try to do life with people, you have to understand that because of people's political nature, you may touch on something that may go against their political nature. And because of that, they will find ways to literally try to sabotage you. They will find ways to be offended by you. They will find ways to betray you very quickly. I mean, all of these things happen because of the political nature of people. And so when you understand that, it's like I said a couple of weeks ago, your heart will really not be troubled. Now, you may be shocked by the initial blow of it, or like, oh man, like that was a crazy situation or whatever. But we're just talking about the peace in your heart. Like that will be unshaken and unmoved because you understand that people are literally out here just looking out for themselves. They may be okay individuals and they may try to look out for you or whatever the case is from time to time, but more times than not, people are only looking out for themselves and what pushes their agenda forward. And if it doesn't push their agenda forward, then they will literally throw you to the wolves once they're done using you and getting away from you. So the next point that I want to hit on is why concealment is a part of human nature. Why is concealment a part of human nature? And I think concealment is a part of human nature, especially if we go back to the beginning of Genesis, where they were naked. They were not concealed. They were not hidden by way of clothing or fig leaves or whatever have you. They were not concealed and covered in that way. They were free to operate the way that God designed them to operate. But however, based on the hijacking of the mind, as we talked about in Strategy 1, mindset in the face of misfortune, that hijacking of the mind allowed them to be aware of their own nakedness. So now they are aware that they need to be covered, that their parts have to be concealed, although according to God's original design, that was not the thing, that they didn't have knowledge of that. So just based on knowledge alone, we understand that there's a level of concealment that we must have, just like Jesus coming to earth. And as he came to earth, he didn't just come out with a megaphone talking about, I'm king of the Jews, I'm king of the Jews. He didn't do that. But he moved in a way that was very, it was very strategic. And in his strategic movement, he never had to declare with his mouth that he was king of the Jews. People were able to sometimes even come to their own conclusions about that, including Pontius Pilate, and some of even the religious leaders that were trying to mock him, or not religious leaders more particularly, but Roman soldiers and stuff like that were mocking him for being king of the Jews, supposedly. And so Jesus concealed that portion of who he was because it would be revealed at a particular time. It would be revealed at a particular moment. But the time was not necessarily when they wanted it to be, right? It didn't have to be right then and right there. It's almost like in due season, God is going to say, you will know. Right? You will know. So concealment is a part of human nature if we are to operate in the world, because if we're just so open and we're flamboyant and, we are just so loud with who we are, we're claiming to be authentic and we don't care who likes it. I mean, that's fine, but you have to be aware that you'll probably create some enemies along the way, that you have to tone it down sometimes, that you have to conceal your words, that you have to not outshine the master, so to say. You have to do these things to conceal who you are, because sometimes you're really just hidden in plain sight. And some people know it and, other people don't. So the next point that I want to hit on is, how are actions defined more than words? How are actions more defined than words? In the book, I talk about actions and words and how actions are really, or more so words are used as a dress. People can use their words to finesse and finagle anybody. People use words to lie. People use words to paint pictures. And so our mind is always trying to find the meaning behind words. And so in words, we have to be able to see through what's not being said. We have to see what is being said and try to find holes in it. And that's usually going to display with actions, because as humans, we are creatures by habit. So we often default to our animalistic nature of really being predictable. Like we fall back into our routines and our comfort, just like animals. We're able to hunt them because they are routine-based creatures. And that's why I say we often fall into our animalistic nature, which is why we usually don't run our habits. We usually don't outrun our actions. And we don't listen to words, but instead of hearing what they're saying, see what they're actually doing. And once you see that, then you'll be able to literally come to a proper conclusion and judgment about your next move and what you should do. Another question is, explain the political games that people play. People are always playing games. This is something that I didn't know. I was naive to in my youth. people are always playing games. People are always trying to advance their own agenda. And so when you know that you have to move around people a certain way, right? You have to move around people a certain way. Here in the book, I want to read something to you. It says, give me 1 second. I say that the political games that people are playing are like they pretend to agree with you while inwardly disagreeing with you and finding ways to sabotage you at some point because they did not agree with you, right? That's the political games that people play. People will smile in your face and they'll act like they agree with you. And then the moment that they leave your presence, they're trying to find a way to discredit you. They're trying to find a way to dismantle you. They're trying to find a way to get you out of your position. They're trying to find a way to get you out of your character. And then the whole time they're literally smiling in your face and you're none the wiser. You know what I mean? So these are the political games that people play. So you have to understand that it's probably more people that don't agree with you than that do agree with you. And so again, you can't be shocked when things happen. You just can't be shocked. It could be a moment of revelation, like, that's what I was missing. That was the enlightenment that I needed to move forward, but not shocked in terms of, just kind of getting into this deep, dark hole about whatever. It's just more so about being enlightened and aware of what you now know through people's political games. Another one is, how do we learn to see through people's masks? This was something that I had to learn, that seeing through people's masks is really relevant to, of course, micro expressions, meaning the first 25th of a second. When you tell someone good news, a person is going to show exactly what they thought in their mind, even though they may not say it out loud. But if they feel like the facial expression that they made was socially unacceptable, they'll try to correct it immediately with a smile and try to overcorrect and, congratulate you, do whatever like that. But the whole time they didn't really like what they just heard relative to your good news. And so you have to understand that everybody's acting. When you are dealing with people, they are smiling to be diplomatic. They are agreeing with you more times than not to just appease the moment without causing offense. But people, you can't look at them at face value. You have to look beneath the surface to figure out their character and who they are deeply as an individual and as a person, not the front that they display, because anybody can masquerade. The last point, the last question is, explain what it means to have a bit of bite to your character. And this concept of having a bit of bite to your character is the nice, nasty approach that I learned from my grandmother, which is not necessarily being rude, but it's more so about being firm. It's not about being disrespectful and passive aggressive, but it's about being firm and letting people know that I see through your tricks. I see through your political games. I see through your mask, and you're not going to get away with it. Having a bit of bite to your character allows you to develop a defense mechanism. And in the book, I use a porcupine analogy that I read about. And you have to get the book to read about that. I don't want to give that away. But you have to develop a defense mechanism about yourself, but it has to be healthy. It cannot be, reactive or anything like that. It has to be a healthy defense mechanism to where you are able to fend off your enemies and you are able to fend off those that are trying to wage a war against you, so that they know that the moment that they try to wage a war against you, that it won't be worth their time, effort, or energy to do so, because your defense mechanism is so strong. So having a bit of bite about your character is really just the idea and the concept of developing a healthy defense mechanism. Again, not walking around with paranoia, thinking that everybody's out to get you and all this other stuff, but it's nipping stuff in the bud, knowing when enough is enough, knowing what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. It's having a standard and doing everything you can to not fall below that standard. That's what it means to have a bit of bite to your character. Thank you so much for tuning into this YouTube video. In the description box will be the link to the books. You can get a PDF copy, digital, physical copy, or an audio book. Thank you so much for your time. Until next time, friends. Peace.
May the Lord bless you, keep you, and make His face shine upon you. As we abide in His grace, presence, and peace, remember that you are an agent of change wherever your feet shall tread. Thanks for listening to this message and for the opportunity to teach and lead you. Until next time.